That's why it's back to the word intuition. It doesn't mean your inner teacher, and it doesn't mean your inner guide. It means your inner tutor. And the tutor is the one who hangs with you, watches you, teaches you, sherpas you, waits for you, friends, like is a friend and a buddy with you, but just enough to keep you safe as well. So a tutor, whatever you might think tutor means, the language of tutor means the one who teaches and guides.
Welcome to the world of energy, where science meets spirit. Ancient wisdom merges with cutting-edge knowledge, and the possibilities for a healthier, happier you are endless. Hi everyone, Lauren here with a new episode of Energy Works Big Ideas. And I'm super excited today for this podcast with author Hilary McCann Crowley, who some of you know as one of my best friends from forever. And we got to just such a fun conversation. I wanted to talk to her. She is an expert. She teaches, she leads, her work is really based in intuition. And so I wanted to talk to her about what it is. What is intuition? What is consciousness? And what could she teach us about it? And wow, what a fascinating, fun, giggly conversation we had. She is so smart. I'm always just like, how does she know all this stuff that she knows? Maybe it's because she has a very well-honed intuition. So I think you're really going to love this. I hope you do. I just had a blast and I want to get her on again and again because she's so much fun to talk to. So sit back and enjoy this conversation with Hilary. Welcome everyone to another episode of Big Ideas. And I'm a little giggly right now because I'm here with Hilary. And you'll have already listened to the intro, so I don't need to tell you who she is now. But if you're just jumping in media race, then I'll have to just tell you that Hilary's one of my best friends since we were like little kids. So when we get together again, we like have little kid energy. And she has just had a snow day. There was a massive snowstorm on the East Coast. I just got home from skiing. So we've got this kind of bubbly, snowy energy. And so we're going to try to like reel that down a little bit and just get really focused because I'm really excited to talk to you, all of you out there, but you, Hilary, specifically about something that is the deepest, quietest, most internal part of us that we have. And that is our intuition. So welcome, Hilary.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. I love you describing it like that. Our deepest part of us, ourselves. That's right. It is. It is.
Yeah. Well, so you are the expert, I'm going to say. You are the expert on intuition. So before we dive in too much, can you just tell us what is intuition? Let's just up level or level set or whatever it is they say. Let's all get on the same page so that we know what we're talking about when we're talking about intuition. What is it? What is intuition, Hilary?
Okay, well, if we want to just start with the word itself, the etymology of the word, the history of the word, first of all, it's a word that you'll see in many different languages and that all sounds about the same, intuition. And it breaks down and it reflects on your inner teacher, more specifically your inner tutor, who is the one that guides you. So throughout cultures and time, through centuries, we've been acknowledging that there is something deep down inside of us that guides us. And we gave it this, what I think is kind of a modern sounding word, which is kept up with the time, called intuition. So do some people have intuition and other people don't have intuition? No, intuition is a known inner part of ourselves that guides us. I think the only difference is different people have a different relationship with their intuition in the same way different people have a different relationship with their heart or their hands or their feet. So that's on a very basic line, but it is also very high level to approach life like, yes, I have intuition. And one of the reasons why intuition is tricky to share or teach about is because it's very, very intimate. It's intimate. It's intimate because it's my relationship with my intuition. So for instance, if I call my intuition Sally, I don't want somebody coming along and saying, how's Bob doing today? Like, it is my relationship, my buddy, my imaginary friend, who is not imaginary whatsoever. But it's definitely, it relates to that early relationship with self, which felt a lot like, the friendships that you make when you're younger with imagination and play and so forth. So the most important thing that I'm finding is that intuition in the 20 years or so or more that I've been doing this is that intuition used to be kind of a funky little word that people didn't talk about. And now it's more than in the mainstream, which in my mind, Lauren, means it really does need to be spoken about more on a level of expertise so that there isn't this kind of casual dismissing of it, nor do I want anyone to steal it from somebody else, that energy of do not steal. Like, everyone has their own personal relationship with intuition. So how do you teach it or without dissecting it? How do you teach the inside without dissecting? Do you know the story of the frog?
I was just thinking about the frog. But before we go there, I have to go. You said steal it. What is it? What can be stolen? The way of teaching it? What can be stolen?
Well, it's one of the basic, most fundamental rules of culture, including the yoga culture, which is do not steal, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so my relationship with intuition is very personal. And your relationship with intuition is very personal. Now, we have evolved in our modern society to externalize the information. So even when I say to pretty holistic people, intuition means your inner guide, ears perk up. They're like, really? That's a thing? I said, not only is it a thing, it's an old word. Intuition is an old word. And so now we go from not acknowledging it to realizing that it's very, very real, but still there's that small voice inside of us that's a relationship that you don't want to steal. You don't want to, I don't want to take over your relationship with your intuition or your inner guide, Lauren. And speaking for myself, I don't want anyone to take that over from me. And we can take that gigantic leap. Maybe I work in healthcare where somebody is very in a suggestive state. They're scared, they're worried. And then intuition being taught the wrong way can say, I know something more about your inner working than you know about your inner working. That is the definition of stealing on a very spiritual level.
Is that like sort of putting in false memories or things like that people have had happen to them or things like that?
I guess that would be a terrible version of it, but I could imagine that could happen. Like, maybe I can even imagine it's happened to me if somebody could say, Hilary, my intuition is telling me that, you fell and hit your head when you were 2 years old. Be like, no, I did not. I don't think I did. Reported that. There's no medical record of it. Like, no, I'm sensing. So this magical kind of, can I say spiritual bypassing? I'm not actually too worried that it happens, but I do think it does happen if you're not trained on the intuition as well. Starting with believing that you own your own intuition, that you are the authority, you are the one that writes the story and the script for that relationship with your inner guide. That's how strongly I feel about it.
Yeah. Okay. So I need to, since we're still in the defining it place.
Okay.
I need to get a little more specific because what's happening in the zeitgeist right now is a lot of focus on consciousness.
Oh yeah.
What is consciousness? Where is it from? All of these things, and what do we do with it? What does it mean? Are we conscious even? Where did consciousness come from? I might have just been repeating myself because it's happening right now. It's a big thing in the world right now. There's a lot of books coming out right now about it. There's a lot of podcasting about it. So talk to me about the difference in your perspective as a really profound teacher of intuition. What is it that you think of in terms of consciousness, not maybe versus intuition, but are they connected, correlated? Are they the same thing? Are they different things? Are they part of each other? Talk to us a little bit about consciousness and intuition, how you would parse those.
Okay, well, I would parse it with the idea of the brain and the mind. I heard somebody describing how the brain is a noun and the mind is a verb. I think consciousness is part of the mind. So it's the verb. And I think intuition is part of like the consciousness of the heart. So it's also a verb, meaning like movement, action. You know what I mean by verb, Lauren? Like it's moving, it's action, and so forth. When we're asking about consciousness and intuition and where it all comes from, and it's in the collective. I mean, this is funny because I don't know if you realize you made this joke, but you basically said, do you know consciousness is in the collective consciousness right now? Like, it's funny. Like, you called it what did you call it? The
Zeitgeist.
A very difficult word for me. What's the history of the word zeitgeist?
You know, you always get me on these. I'm going to look it up. I have my old Webster's here. I always look up stuff. I love it. I'm going to look up and see if Zeitgeist is in here. But
anyone who's listening and not watching this, Lauren literally is pulling out a book, like a beautiful book. It's like maroon cover. It's like worn, and she's flipping through the pages right now, looking this word up.
And it's so worn and old that Zeitgeist isn't even in there.
That isn't even. So we know it's a new-ish word.
It's a new-ish word. This particular book is from 1964, so it's not that old.
No.
But it's not in here. So zeitgeist basically means like what's currently going on, what's in vogue, what's everybody thinking about, what's the collective consciousness of the moment, right? And that's what the zeitgeist is. And so the collective consciousness of the moment, a big piece of it is about what is consciousness. So yeah, it could be a meta joke. Can we retake back the word meta? Because it's funny if it's funny if we can do that, and if we can't, then it's not as funny.
No, it's funny. I mean, it goes back to you're going to let me get back to the frog. I know you are. But now I'm going to talk about the fish. It goes, to the fish is like, what's that? Lauren asks Hilary, what's up with all this water? And I say, what water, Lauren? And so
that is exactly what Michael Pollan, who has a book coming out this week, whenever you're listening to this, he's coming out in the end of February 2026 with a book about consciousness. And one of the things in his tagline is like, the fish doesn't know they're in water. So you pick that up out of the field and keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but keep going.
Well, I think this is great because, for the beginning of defining intuition, I can't define intuition without talking about the fact that I do energy healing. So intuition continues to get stronger and stronger for those of us who do energy healing of any sort, of any kind. I would say all of the arts is a form of energy healing, right? So if you're allowing yourself to be in the flow, the greater flow, plugging in with something more than just your regular routine every day, then you're going to feel consciousness. But the consciousness is everywhere outside of us. I kind of think of it as outside of us, but running through us. The part that runs through us is called intuition. How's that? I mean, that's where I'm at.
Wait a second. How's that? You as if you just like flicked a crumb off the table. That was a mic drop. Are you kidding? Consciousness, hold on, is everything all around us, and it flows through us. And intuition is the part of it that flows through us. I mean, that is quite profound. It's also a little bit of a deviation from what you said before that I also adored, so maybe we'll hook these two together, is that consciousness is the verb of the mind and intuition is the verb of the heart. Talk to us a little bit about your feeling that intuition lives or emerges from the heart versus the mind / brain a little bit. I want to kind of bring in the brain because I think the brain can be something that can kind of tank our intuition. So maybe speak a little bit about that.
Okay, let me start with the brain and the mind. So the brain and the mind is taking in information from the external world. That's its job, to gather data. The heart has been with us from the moment we began living. And so it's resonating out of field all the time. So the heart is like its own center of your personal consciousness, which connects up with all the other consciousnesses. Now I'm going to have to look this up, but it's recently I heard that data has come through the Heart Institute, the Heart Math Institute, that shows that we actually don't have like enough. Two things. We don't have, our heart is not built like the pump. We don't have a strong enough pump to pump. The heart doesn't pump, it resonates. And the brain doesn't, you cannot look this up, everybody. And the brain doesn't have enough electro synapses to hold the amount of memory that you hold, or the information that we hold. So coming out of the Heart Math Institute is this idea that the physical organ of the brain and the physical organ of the heart cannot hold the amount of activity or the amount of information. And so therefore we are in a resonant field. And I know you and I are speaking to each other and we know this. But I'm so glad books are coming out about this, because then the big question is, fish says, well, where is it? And the other fish says it's in the water. And then the first fish says, what water? I mean, we could go on and on, like who's on first on this? So we cannot hold it in the field. From every ritual that's ever done, from the beginning of human history, there are small things you do that resonate into big actions. It's fascinating. I think the timing is beautiful to be talking about intuition, energy, resonance. And I've also never really liked the idea of separating the mind from the heart and the body. Recently, I've been using the word like we embody consciousness. So rather than saying mind, body, spirit, just say I'm the embodiment of love. I'm the embodiment of consciousness, or I'm the embodiment of fear right now, right? So I want to clear I don't want to embody this. And embody, I think, does mean the heart, the mind, and the spirit that we've been calling it. I feel like in real time as we're talking, Lauren, you can feel some of these words getting outdated as new words come in. That's why I think it's cool you picked up the old dictionary. Like, words come and words go as consciousness rises, So here we are. Intuition is the way we process our personal consciousness as well as the consciousness that we're living through. So it's a guide. It's a lot. Yeah. It's hard to talk about, which is why I love talking about.
No, this is good. And I like that you just dropped this word, and I apologize for interrupting you, but I'm going to scoop it right up, because you said It's a guide. It's a guide. And I think that's really key and really important. This idea that I'm going to go back to Walt Whitman, contain multitudes. And it's interesting that we really can only talk about these things through art, through literature, because science is just catching up to the reality that, of all of these things that you just said. And the fact that the heart is not a pump, that's not a new phenomenon, but I do want to read this research from Heart Math. If you've read Tom Cowan's book on the heart, it is fascinating. If you haven't, grab it. It's so incredible that there are things, what's so amazing about the body, let's just call it the body, the embody, right? So it contains everything, not just the physical body, that we just don't understand really much about it at all, right? We're just starting to get a handle on the mechanistic part of the body, and everything else, we are just racing to catch up. And when I say catch up, it's like everything old is new again, because this idea of consciousness as well as intuition has been with us for thousands and thousands of years. In Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, the two oldest medical systems on the planet, they talk at length about what consciousness is and where it derives and all of these things. And all of a sudden now the scientists today are like, what's consciousness? Where, it's the hard problem of science. Nobody knows how it is. How is it that we are conscious? And so let's put that aside for a moment, because I don't think we're going to break open or answer the hard question of physics in this podcast right now. But I want to get back to this idea of intuition as a guide, because I know that that is something that you do quite a lot in the work that you do, use your own intuition in a medical situation of helping people, guide them towards their healthiest version of themselves through challenges and through difficulties. And I want you to clarify maybe for our audience a little bit, because I know that you get this a lot, and I've been doing a lot of reading about the intermingling fields and signs and synchronicities and those kind of things that come out of the field, and talking to people beyond and all of that sort of thing. And I know you've gotten that a lot of people that say to you, hey, can you reach out to my grandma and who's been dead for 50 years and ask her a question, And I know that that's not what you do. So can you talk a little bit about how you use your intuition as a guide in the work that you do, and what it isn't? Like, talk about what it isn't as well. It isn't about talking to the dead, or is it? Like, clear that up.
Okay. So first of all, I want to clear up the part that I work with medical community. I am not a medical expert myself at all. So I work with the medical community. And I love that, because the medical community, I think, is, if they had enough time, is very tuned in to the field of their patients, right? And so, to make it very simple, a surgeon will say, you should go see Hilary before you go into surgery, so that your energy field, and you can see if there's any stuck energy. So these doctors would never teach or preach on intuition, but they know that their beautiful patients all have their own consciousness. In the introduction to my book, Molly Busden, who's a fabulous surgeon, made better by the fact that she cares and is curious about her patient's consciousness, had spoken to me about how when her patients are under anesthesia, she can feel their consciousness. And she said, and I am not alone with that. I am not alone. So
hold on. So, stop there for a second. Hold on. What does that mean?
Yes.
Feel their consciousness. Can you tell, what does that mean?
You were like verbatim responding the way I responded when she said it to me. I said, what do you mean? And she said, I can feel their personality. I can feel like as if a guide is watching over me while I'm doing surgery. And this is a very like mainstream busy surgeon who is like the head of surgery in different departments and so forth. And I have heard that from many other doctors, nurses, and surgeons, that they can feel, of course, the consciousness of their patient. But get this, there isn't really like a space to hold for the patient. And then if you add on top of that the rigor of scheduling and documenting and prescribing and diagnosing, this is low on their checklist of the care and feeding of the patient. They need to make sure all the, what's it called, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So lucky me, and I hope there'll be more people from the next generation doing this. I get the phone call that says either, Hilary, can you take care of my patient for me? Or, hey, doc told me to come on over, and I was wondering if you could give me some kind of a insight into what I need in order to be prepared for surgery or prepared for the next part of my life, or to overcome grief or so forth. So I just needed to, first of all, say one of the things that it's not in my world is it's not medical expertise, but it's peripheral to it. And by peripheral, the most powerful way for me to respect somebody else's energy field is to be able to almost like the energy field, Lauren, which you know so well about, and the messages you get from intuition for me, it's one and the same. And so what is not is, it is never a diagnosis. It is never a prognosis. It also never, ever, ever, ever feels like fear. It doesn't come in with an energy of fear or shame. or even anger. And when those energies resonate, that just means that I'm not anywhere near the vibration of intuition. Intuition feels like usually feels like a memory that you've never experienced. That's how smooth and peripheral the energy is. It's like a memory, but you haven't experienced it. So it's not a new thought, but it's not your thought. So it's a remembering. Yeah. And you're making the sound. You're making the sound of the intuition when I know I'm on something with intuition, because it sounds like aha. It sounds like aha.
Wow.
From the inside. So in the most difficult sessions, in the most difficult cases, when people are highly charged or high arousal or frustration, whatever, no matter what is going on, when I'm tuned into the intuition, it's not even my personality, because I can be very animated and so forth, but the messages land with this aha and this remembering. And it has a calming effect that has a consciousness very different from who I am. So that's another way to define consciousness, when you can separate out yourself from this other whole consciousness, right? That's like this bigger self. So,
and it's not the consciousness of the person that you're working with.
I would say here we get to the guide. It's guided, and supported, but it's respecting the consciousness of the personhood of the person that I'm working with, as I hope I'm respecting the person of myself. But it's usually like another library of information going on that isn't always there in your everyday, ordinary consciousness.
So you feel it's very clearly not you. It's not one of your parts. For those of you that knows parts work, or even if you don't know parts work, you have the part that's really animated, or the part that's quiet, the part that likes to exercise, the part that likes to sit on the couch. We have all these different parts of ourselves. I'm not really doing parts work per se with that little description, but what I'm trying to get at with this question is that this is not a part of you. This is your it is like you're reaching into the collective consciousness and gathering information. Is that right? Is that what's happening?
Say everything except don't say collective consciousness, because collective consciousness is, as you'd said before, just say consciousness. Because collective consciousness goes into, what the group is thinking, and how, big ideas are dropping at the same time. That's what I think of collective consciousness. This is the more intimate consciousness that is the air you breathe and the water you swim in. It's the consciousness of being alive, of being human. So yes, it's that consciousness that we're tuning into. Now, can I say what it is more? Can I say more about what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
So
this is so exciting. I want to ask you a million questions at every turn, but I'm going to let you talk.
I think that the consciousness can be the Akashic records, which I've been talking about lately, because that's going to be in a workshop I'm teaching. I think that it can be the ancestors. I think it can be the cellular memory. I think the ancestors could also be historically another way of talking about DNA. So the cell brilliance and the cell memory, and then it can be the consciousness of spirit, which is a huge topic to get into because it's massive. It's about creator energy. It's about the cosmos. It's about understanding all that is. Okay. And that is, access to that is consciousness, and access to that is what I read with intuition. So very easily, I have so many fun stories, but the one story that's coming up for me right now is, Lauren, I finished a session, and I have a session as you said, it's like in a family medical practice, and I do a little bit of an intake where I listen to the mental kosha, and I listen and have a nice interaction face to face. And then I get to have the second part, which is to get on it. I put my client on a therapeutic table, and I do, let's just call it chakra balancing for just lack of a better term. Like we do some chakra balancing. And while I'm doing that, I'm talking to the different, parts of the body, and I'm getting beautiful messages. I know you want to stop me here because I have so many things to say, but just say I had a full and complete session, okay? And have different messages. I'm going to write some of them down, but more importantly, I've cleared and blocked, and I can just feel that the field, if you were to take a photograph of the field feels strong and buoyant and bright and balanced, okay? And then I turned, in this particular case, with this woman who I've seen many, many times over a decade. I turn and I have what all healthcare people call is the doorknob moment, where you reach for the doorknob and all of a sudden there's like one more thing. Have you heard of this? It's a thing. So you reach for the doorknob and you're like, okay, well that was a good appointment. And right as I turned to open the door, her dog came up. I could smell dog food in the consciousness. Okay. And so because I've done this for a while, and because it doesn't matter whether I know her well or not, but it helps that I know her well. I say, wait, what's up with your dog? And she says, what? I said, are you feeding your dog good food? She goes, I feed my dog excellent food. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to wrap up this session, and something in your consciousness is telling me to, take care of your dog, because I'm being made very aware of the dog food. And in that awareness, the dog food matters. And this is, I'm being very specific with her as I'm being specific with all of you, with you, Lauren, and with your listeners, right? It was dog food, definitely something about dog food. And she proceeded to say something like, amazing. It's like we slaughter our own, chickens in the morning. Like she couldn't like be feeding the dog more like farm to table kind of a moment with the dog. And I was like, that is so funny. And I said, is anyone else feeding the dog? And she said, well, we share custody. And I said, well, what the heck does that mean? What are you talking about? And she says, well, with my ex, I share custody. I said, so how often do you share custody? She goes, every other night. I'm like, what? Every other night? And I said, so, okay, wow. All right. So thank you, consciousness and spirit and dog energy that's coming through, that's in her field. And I said, how does he feed the dog? And she goes, oh, gravy train. I'm like, do they still make gravy train? So I said, well, that's very worth me stopping before we walk out the door, that you two need to get on the same page, because even if you feed this dog delicious food and you feed the other dog no shade on gravy train, because my dog lived to be 17 back when I was a child. I don't know if it's the same gravy train, but it is what it is, but I wouldn't, it's not the best. But switching them up every day, that can't be good for anybody. And the reason I wanted to share that with you, Lauren, is to wrap it up, is like, so sometimes people's living dogs with food issues are in their field. You cannot limit what is in the field when it's in the spirit of goodness and care and love. So there it goes. It was helpful in healing, in the healing field. So it was pretty cool thing that I got that day. Intuition.
It's so, it's just so, magical is just the wrong word, because it sort of denigrates it in a way that it can't be, because it's just fascinating to me, the fields, the fields of consciousness, the interconnection of them all, and how information can be harvested, since we're using the word field, because it's a different field, but harvested from the field. And I want to go back to something that you said, because it's profound, and I think it's helping me to, not that I feel like I'm the one that can solve the hard problem of consciousness, but I've been thinking about it a lot. And one of the things, and I don't know if it came from Nassim Haramein or somewhere else, so I want to give credit, because I think it came from him, but it could have come from someone else, and it came from someone else. Credit to you, whoever you are. But that, consciousness must be in everything for us to be conscious, because it's not like we could just have cells that are unconscious, made of atoms that are unconscious, made of subatomic material that is unconscious, and that we put enough cells together to get critical mass, and like Frankenstein's monster, all of a sudden we have consciousness. Like that just doesn't seem to be a realistic sequence of events that's going to happen. The cell must be conscious. And you brought that up. You talked about the consciousness of the DNA, the consciousness of the cell, the consciousness of the ancestors, and, you know, and how they bleed through space and time, because really in consciousness, there is no space and time. Like everything exists in the same moment. And it's just, how do we access the information that we want? And when I talked about collective consciousness, you correctly said that that's sort of like what we talk about when, you know, an idea drops in at many different places at once, which we all know that happens all the time everywhere, which is why when you get a great idea, run with it, because somebody else just got that great idea too, because they're just in the field and they're just waves of information. And, okay. So I love the dog food. I love that that was just in the field. The smell of the dog food was in the consciousness. I mean, that was just an incredible piece that you just shared with us right there. So what you do is mind-boggling to me all the time. And I've spent a lot of time with you when you're doing these evenings where you sort of teach a little bit about consciousness, but let us play in these fields of consciousness and see how it is. And every time it happens, it blows everybody's mind. People are like, whoa, how did you know the dog food thing, right? And you're like, okay, this is how I know. But so I'm kind of leading you, because what I want to know from you is, can you teach somebody to have the level of skill that you have? And I'm saying it very specifically like that because, you know, I've spent years studying with Donna Eden, and everybody wants Donna Eden's superpower. Every single person to a T wants to be able to see energy the way that Donna sees energy. And I know that our listeners are going to want to smell the dog food in the consciousness of their friend the way that you did. And so can you teach it? Is there an innate ability of intuition? Is it available to all of us? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, Lauren. First of all, one of the ways I teach it is the very first step is permission, right? So I think everyone should have permission. But next to permission, I want to say something a little different that I don't think you've heard me say yet. The best way to get these abilities, skills, and I've often said it's like a muscle, or you know, some people say it's innate. But I actually think the best way is very unpopular, and it's called unlearning. Unlearning. Really getting out of your own way and deconstructing and unpacking all these preconceptions that you have. So even as you were speaking about consciousness, early in my career, I was introduced to a concept that wasn't hard for me to believe. And anyone who's seen like Beauty and the Beast, they wouldn't believe it's hard either. But there's a belief in Eastern and Western cultures, and modern and indigenous cultures, that everything has consciousness. Everything, not just things that, you know, have a limb or a leaf or a rock, or it's actually a way of looking at the world that's not inaccurate. Everything comes and is part of something. And so the consciousness is in every single thing. The reason why I made that Beauty and the Beast comment is because the teacups come alive, right? And the clocks come alive, and the beast becomes a person and then becomes a beast again, you know? And the flower has a consciousness, and the cut flower has a consciousness. The vase has a consciousness. So, silly, right? Silly, cartoony, you know, fairy tale stuff. But help me out here, Lauren, because there's something called, you know, having that imagination and that sweet childishness of unlearning. Not the childishness of the mind of the reward, you know, the reward punishment. That's the childish mind that we're supposed to put aside. But don't throw out, no pun intended, the baby with the bathwater, because that ability to imagine consciousness and everything, which is imagination, is your gateway to your accessing your intuition. And very, very few people have never accessed their intuition. And if Donna Eden was to say what she would want in this world, because look at the work that she's done, she wants everybody to have this. But somewhere along the way, she got very good at unblocking, unlearning, unrestricting her abilities. That's my guess. That it comes with her, to her for ease. So what if we once had an ability? Have you ever heard the theory about angels' wings? And everyone listening knows about the fourth chakra, right? Your people know about the chakra system, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So if I had a spinning circle coming through me behind my back, and it was big and strong and had a heat to it, so like a hawk can see heat. A mouse can't hide underneath a leaf because the hawk can see it. A bat can pick up on sound waves. We have all of this. We have these abilities, but we have nurtured some and let some go. But in the unlearning, we could have a quiet peripheral ability to tune into this. I don't say like direct, but just a peripheral sense, if you know what I mean by that. It has been proposed to me before from some researchers that said to me, we used to be able to see the big heat around people who had big heart chakras. They'd have energy running into their backs. And if you were to see me and I had a big circle behind me, what would that look like? It would look like wings. Have you heard this before, Lauren?
Mm-mm,
yeah.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. It would look like wings. And so, and because we like to make sense of forms and figures and face and the shapes of bodies and the shapes of animals, and that it would make sense that what is this big circle behind this soul's back? And would say, oh, well, that looks like the eagle wings or the owl's wings. And so now we've anthropomorphized the consciousness of like angelic energy. And if we want to be like, oh, angels, that's so new age. Okay, really? Is it? Because go to an art museum, any art museum. Just go anywhere around the world. Dan Brown just wrote about it. He's like, what is the most universal symbol in all of art? The halo, right? What's the halo? Here, Lauren, let me just give this to you. So you know the chakras. So if the fourth chakra is the wings, what chakra is the halo? The crown, right? Yeah. Yeah. The seventh, mm-hmm. if some people call it the seventh. So on and on and on, we might need to unlearn some of those filters and blocks that we've put in. And I think one thing I'll say I'm pretty good at is like spacing out and kind of like, I don't know, it could be a learning style. I'm not going to call it a disability, but it served me well. It served me well because I can unlearn things maybe quicker than the average person, or I didn't take on indoctrinations the way maybe I should have at a certain age. So I don't know, but I think everybody can unlearn. Unlearn was a big language that came out around Black Lives Matter. And, we got a lot of unlearning to do. And while you're at it, I bet you'll develop a lot of intuition too, when you get out of that brainy brain punishment reward cycle that you got trained your brain on. Unlearn a few of those.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there, but one thing I want to tune into is the halo, because what it is symbolic of is both that we are an antenna, that we are receiving information and then transmitting information out of the crown chakra, so that it's not this illumination of this divinity, but it is literally tuning in to the field. And how does information get transmitted today? It gets transmitted through wavelengths of information in the field. So everyone's like, I don't understand what that means, but yet, where's my phone? I was thinking about this today. I was on the mountain and I had my phone with me because I did a little Instagram live from the top of the mountain. And everyone has their phones. I don't keep mine on when I'm skiing because I don't want whatever it is it's doing. I don't want it to be transmitting and receiving while I'm next to it. But everyone, and there's thousands of people on the mountain. And I was at the summit house at the summit, and there was maybe I don't know, just looking around the summit, was there 200 people? Probably 200 people moving through. Every one of them receiving information in waves and sending it, they're calling their friend. Where are you? I'm on chair 4. Where are you? I'm on chair 7. I'll see you at the top in 20. Everyone's transmitting waves and receiving waves. And I was just visualizing, because I don't see energy the way Donna does, that there's like all of the waves just circling around us, pouring around us constantly in a way that never was before. We are just inundated with wavelengths of information. And to be able to clarify that information, we have to be able to tune in to the antenna that is us. So for me, that's what I think about when I think about intuition. How, are you accessing the intuition sort of like doing the knobs on the old radios, or how are you getting that? How'd you pick up the dog? Can you tell us? Is that transmittable?
I can't reiterate strongly enough this idea of unknowing, unlearning, and being guided to be safe in the space beyond our material structure. Because, to be clear, there was no dog bowl in the room, and the client couldn't smell the dog food either. And as soon as I acknowledged the dog food as an issue, my smell of the dog food went away. So I have no idea. But what I tend to say, and which keeps me kind of accurate when I'm working in a medical space and I'm picking up on things, I say, you came in with this in your field. So this is in the thought field. This is in the wisdom field. And I think this is a great case, actually, because she already knew that there was something that was in need that was being communicated from her heart to her dog, who she loves dearly, and maybe even to her ex. They both love this dog dearly, right? They shared custody, for goodness sake. It's a beautiful thing. And so it was already known, but it wasn't being transmitted, or maybe it was even being ignored because it was being blocked. And to that point, we could say we have more with all these phones and everything. We have more messages flying than ever, but have you looked up at the stars lately? Who knows how many messages have been flying around forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, 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 ever. Just don't even get me started. I can't even handle the sun. When you look at the sun, there's nothing between you, look at sunlight, hitting the ground beneath you. In that moment that the sun is pouring through the window and hitting your big toe, there is nothing between you and the sun. Do you know how much energy that must be? Just transmitting like that. I can't even. And I guess because I can't and I can, I'm really good at unlearning. I'm like, I can't, And so I just surrender. I'm like, this is too much. It's too much. But guide, the intuition, helps us handle the too much, Lauren. But we can just ignore that guide our whole life. And that's why it's back to the word intuition. It doesn't mean your inner teacher, and it doesn't mean your inner guide. It means your inner tutor. And the tutor is the one who hangs with you, watches you, teaches you, Sherpas you, waits for you, friends, is a friend and a buddy with you, but just enough to keep you safe as well. So a tutor, whatever you might think tutor means, the language of tutor means the one who teaches and guides, which is very, very different than the strict school teacher or the person you just follow and who doesn't come back and check in on you. So it's this combination of teaching and guiding. And that's what the inner tutor is doing for you all along, always. And it's very patient energy. So it does not matter if you're listening or not. You can have whatever experience you want to have. That's the free will coming down to the third chakra. That's the free will. So you can have whatever experience you want. But if you want to just whisper a little sneaky up, the expression these days is get all sneaky up into your heart for a second, and then check in and listen and ask your heart, because it's really wise, and say, what do I want to unlearn about this situation today? You might be pleasantly surprised. I unlearn with every single case I see. They hand me a form especially if somebody gives me a diagnosis or a prognosis, I'll be like, don't know what that means. I have no idea. That has no meaning to me. I treat it like it's a separate language. I'm better at that than other people to like unlearn things. So if that's my superpower, I wish it for all of you, because it's pretty cool to be able to like space out and give more space to my guides and my direction, especially in the name of helping other people. Not always so good at it myself, but when in the name of helping other people, it's easier for me in my practice.
Wow. 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 Okay. You just dropped the future crumb for our next podcast. We're going to talk at some point about why it's hard for you to do for yourself what is so easy for you to do to other people. But I think this is a perfect place to wrap up, because you have dropped so much wisdom. I'm going to have to spend a lot of time thinking about that unlearning. I think that is brilliant. I love it. I want to, I'm going to say it. I want to learn more about it.
Of course you do.
Being somebody that's, very much guided by my intellect. I love that idea. And I want to spend some time with it. And I just love the guidance that you have shared with us about the tutor, about the inner teacher, all of these sort of breadcrumbs that we can follow as we're trying to find our own best path through life.
I just want to say one little thing, just to kind of like, the takeaway. There's two. One, it's a very common phenomenon that we need each other. So I need somebody to help me connect with my inner guides. We're not supposed to do this alone. We never were. So it's a common phenomenon for that. And the other is that I got to bring it back to the frog just for a second.
Oh, bring the frog.
And the whole idea about the frog is that you can know all the inner workings of the frog. You can know all the parts and pieces on the inside. But when you dissect the frog, you kill the frog. And so sometimes you just have to let frog energy be frog energy, and you can't take it all apart, because when you dissect the frog, you get all of your answers, but the frog doesn't make it. So it's this gentle balance of like being patient and curious and being in awe of the living energy. You can dissect it, but you might have lost. You can dissect intuition. You can dissect your own intuition. But before you do that, make sure that you have found a way to kind of keep the living, breathing essence alive, because it's not worth it to dissect it too much, because then you kill the frog.
And you said if you dissect it, you get all the answers, but then you've killed the frog. But you don't. You don't get all the answers, because you still don't know what makes a frog a frog. And there we are, full circle, right?
Yep. Frogs and fish.
You don't know. You don't know what makes a frog a frog. And so you can never dissect into that knowing, which is where, Western mechanistic science keeps falling on its face, because they keep saying, but we're just going to keep dissecting the frog, and then we're going to tell you how a frog is a frog. And they're never going to get there. And that's why spirituality, paranormal, whatever, which is not para, it's normal. All of these things are making their resurgence, because people want to know how a frog is a frog. They don't want to just know how you sew an arm back onto a frog. They want to know how a frog is a frog. And they also want to know why just sewing the arm back on the frog, what happens after that? Because the frog heals its own arm. Nobody did that, right?
Amazing.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
So thank you for this illuminating conversation. I just, reflecting back, because we are like, even in this moment now, we're still our 6, 7, 8-year-old self. Like that little girl is still in each of us, right? And I love that. And I love that little girl can look at you now and say like, wow, Hilary, you have become a brilliant, incredible woman. And I knew you when. So that just makes me so happy. And what a fun time to share with you. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. I've loved every bit of this conversation, and I always learn and unlearn You asked the most amazing questions. So thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you on another episode of Big Ideas. Take care.
Alrighty, energy fans, that's a wrap on another positively charged episode of Energy Works. Lauren, this is the part where we get to use our energy puns.
It's been electrifying, hasn't it, Blaine? We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
If you're feeling amped up and you want to keep your energy flowing, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform.
And we'd love to hear from you, so please take a moment to leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to deliver content that resonates, so light up our inbox.
And spark a conversation with your friends to tell them about us. And we'll see you next time on Energy Works.